So this is a break from the election coverage for the Russia-Ukraine conflict. For me personally, it's also a break from the Israel, Iran, Hamas, etc. conflict. We've had alarms and missiles just yesterday, I believe in the middle of the night. Anyway, North Korean troops in Russian uniforms are heading towards Ukraine, US says. That does not sound encouraging. So, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said Wednesday that North Korean troops wearing Russian uniforms and carrying Russian equipment are moving toward Ukraine in what he called a dangerous and destabilizing development. Austin was speaking at a press conference in Washington with South Korean Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun as concerns grow about Pyongyang's deployment of as many as 12,000 troops to Russia. The US and South Korea say some of the North Korean troops are heading to Russia's Kursk region on the border with Ukraine, where the Kremlin's forces have struggled to push back a Ukrainian incursion. Some North Korean advanced units have already arrived in the Kursk region, and Austin said the likelihood is pretty high that Russia will use the troops in combat. North Korea's move to tighten its relationship with Russia has triggered alarms across the globe, as leaders worry about how it may expand the war in Ukraine and what Russian military aid will be delivered to Pyongyang in exchange. Well, whose fault is all this? I'm sorry, we've had so many people talk about how this is all avoidable, how this is essentially an attempt from the West, specifically from left-wing politicians in the West like Biden, like Boris Johnson. Yes, I know he was leader of the Tories, but he is, how to put it, obviously an establishment puppet. And they were specifically ordering Zelensky to refuse the peace overture. All he had to do was say, okay, we will not join NATO, and everything would be fine. He refused. We've had war for how long now? How many people lost, their existence on this plane? I hate the YouTube censorship. And all of this not only is avoidable, but it is creating further problems down the line. For example, the tightening of relationships between Russia and Korea and Iran. And the big difference between Russia and these states is that Russia is not sponsoring, how to put it, politically or religiously motivated violence all across the globe like Iran does. And Russia does not treat its citizens like they were, in some sort of dystopian novel either. I'm not saying that they have full democracy, but honestly, the current Western regimes have no leg to stand on when criticizing Russia's human rights record. Absolutely not. There's probably more censorship and heavier punishments physically for being a dissident to the government in the West today. I'm talking Germany, Britain, Canada probably, and if Kamala Harris wins, I expect the US as well, then you'd get in Russia. And this is not to say that I think Putin is correct on everything. I don't. That's not to say that I like him. I don't. That's not to say that I would like to live under, Putin's rule in Russia. No. I would like a Western-style democracy like we had, 20, 30 years ago. Or better yet, go further back, and I think the decline started long before I was born, from what I hear and read. What I'm trying to say is, there's no right and wrong in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, because what you have is, on one side, a totalitarian regime that's mostly just a corrupt ruler who wants the best for himself. But I don't think he hates his people. I think he finds them useful. He's chained to them. He is dependent on them. And so he will take some effort to govern them to an extent. And on the other hand, you have the Western regimes that absolutely despise their own populations. And they fear them most of all. And so they do everything in their power to keep them sick and weak and atomized. And they censor the hell out of them, and they punish dissidents to an extent even greater than an authoritarian regime would. And now these guys have pushed Russia into a deeper alliance with very undesirable regimes, like the Iranian regime. And I'm not saying that the Iranian people are bad. I talked to some on the internet, and they were perfectly nice people, even after they knew that I'm from Israel. But the Iranian regime is absolutely sponsoring religiously motivated violence all over the globe. They're absolutely evil. And I can say the same for the North Korean regime. The things they do to their own population is terrifying. And deeper ties between these, you're creating sort of the anti-Western bloc by behaving outrageously on the world stage for no reason. All of this should have been avoided, could have been easily avoided, and I truly believe Trump when he says that even before he is inaugurated, just being a president-elect, he will already finish the conflict in Russia. I don't think it would be that difficult either. I think Zelensky is being pushed to continue this conflict. I don't think it's good for Ukraine at all. And I think Putin didn't want the conflict to begin with. He just didn't want NATO on his border, just like the US didn't want Russian Soviet missiles on their border either. And we almost had a world war over that. So all we need to do is for NATO to back off and say, we're not taking Ukrainian and we're letting Putin have the access to Crimea. That's about it. So it says here, Ukraine's UN ambassador Sergei, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Sergei Kislitsia, something like that, speaking at an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council on Wednesday, said they expect as many as 4,500 North Korean troops to be at the border this week and to begin directly participating in combat operations against Ukrainian forces in November. And, you know, who's to blame for that? I mean, the West has been sending not just munitions, but also all sorts of aid and supposedly even some, you know, fighters to Ukraine against Russia. Why shouldn't they have their allies send aid too? And of course, if they send aid, then they'll have to provide something back. And none of us want to see North Korea get more advanced technology. I mean, if anyone is unstable and likely to do something stupid, especially considering they have nuclear capabilities, yeah. Austin said officials are discussing what to do about the deployment, which he said has the potential to broaden or lengthen the conflict in Ukraine. Asked if it could prompt other nations to get more directly involved in the conflict, he acknowledged that it could encourage others to take actions but provided no details. Well, of course Russia isn't going to go, well, okay, this coalition has beat me, I guess I'll just give up. They'll go, hey, anyone is willing to help me in my time of need, I'll pay you back later. Obviously, you started it, you escalated it, well, now they will retaliate. And it's going to be bad for everyone. This is something that we are going to continue to watch, and we are going to continue to work with our allies and partners to discourage Russia from employing these troops in combat, Austin said. Kim said he doesn't necessarily believe the deployment will trigger war on the Korean peninsula, but it could increase security threats. There is a high possibility that Pyongyang would ask for higher technologies in exchange for its troops, which is what I said is going to be very bad, such as receiving tactical, nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities, he said through an interpreter. Both Kim and Austin called on North Korea to withdraw its troops. Yeah, no, that's not gonna do anything. Russia has had to shift some resources to the Kursk border region to respond to Ukraine's offensive. US leaders have suggested that the use of North Korean forces to augment Russia's defenses indicates that Moscow's losses during the more than 2-year war have significantly degraded its military strength. Yeah, and how much of the West's strength has been degraded? I'm sorry, but the amount of money that was sent to aid Ukraine just by the US alone, I believe it's like 50 years of aid to Israel within the span of 2 years. Not to mention, how much ammunition does the West still have? You know, I heard that basically Ukraine is running out of fighting in age men at this point. They're trying to portray things positively, but everybody is losing out of this war. The biggest losers obviously are the poor Russian and Ukrainian people that are being ended in this stupid conflict that isn't to their own interest. And the next biggest losers are us, the international community, that has to, you know, bleed from our wallets to fund this stupidity. There's not even a huge conflict. Like, if you compare the conflict between Russia, Ukraine, and the conflict between Israel, Iran, let's say, Russia isn't going, oh, well, we have to destroy Ukraine and end all the people there, like Iran often says that they want to do with Israel. They just say, don't join NATO and let us have access to our naval base in Crimea. Stop ending Russian ethnicity people in the, I forgot, the Donbass region, I believe it's called, in Ukraine. It's like they have very reasonable demands that the West basically used as an excuse to try and destabilize the entire region for political purposes. And I'm talking specifically about, again, the Biden-Harris White House. I'm talking about the British, how to put it, uniparty. There's no other way to call them. That's why the Tories lost all support, but nobody actually gained that support. People just gave up because they understood that it's a uniparty. And I suppose to an extent the European Union might be involved, probably Germany. They keep playing these games, and it used to be that the left was the very anti-war, like the liberals. That was one of their best features, along with protecting freedom of speech and human rights. They have given up on all of these positions, like RFK Jr. has noted very correctly, and this is the result. Russia, yeah, so they're doing this because Russian President Vladimir Putin has lost a lot of troops, Austin said, adding that Moscow has a choice between mobilizing more of its own forces or turning to others for help. Already, he noted, Russia has sought military weapons from other nations. These include North Korea and Iran. Probably they don't have more advanced weapons, but rather things like ammunition and supplies. The US estimated there are about 10,000 North Korean troops now in Russia. Others have put the number higher. The Ukrainian ambassador said up to 12,000 North Koreans were being trained at 5 bases in eastern Russia, including at least 500 officers and 30 generals from the general staff. In addition to wearing Russian uniforms and carrying Russian small arms, Kislytsya said they will be provided with Russian identity documents, notably to conceal their presence. He said they are expected to be integrated into units manned by Russia's ethnic Asian minorities, including Buryats. North Korea's UN ambassador Kim Song defended his country's growing military cooperation with Russia and said Pyongyang stood ready to respond if Russia's sovereignty and security interests were threatened. Earlier, a senior South Korean presidential official who spoke on condition of anonymity during a background briefing said that more than 30,000 of the North Korean forces are believed to have moved towards combat zones in western Russia. A Ukrainian official said told the Associated Press that North Korean troops are stationed 50 kilometers, 30 miles, away from the Ukrainian border with Russia. The official was not authorized to disclose the information publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity, did not provide any additional detail. I love the use of anonymous sources by the media. We so often see them getting away with it, despite the fact that if you try to read a even mainstream article or a published a gold standard research paper about health, and these things say something that YouTube doesn't like, too bad for you. But they can just claim anything under, condition of anonymity. And often these things are proven false, and they still get away with it. North Korea provided munitions to Russia, and earlier this month, the White House released images it said were of North Korea shipping 1,000 containers of military equipment there by rail. Hopefully it's more truthful than the WMDs that Saddam Hussein was supposed to have. A key worrisome question is what North Korea will get in return. Officials have yet to say specifically what they may have requested or Moscow has offered, so they have literally no details. Amazing. In their meeting at the Pentagon, Kim and Austin agreed to continue large-scale military exercises, increase cooperations on nuclear deterrence, and upgrade their abilities to deter and respond to North Korean missile launches by improving early launch warning systems, according to a fact sheet released by the Pentagon on Wednesday. Once again, all of this was unnecessary, just funneling more and more money into the military-industrial complex, impoverishing the country. Well, I suppose if you invested in the military-industrial complex, Lockheed Martin, for example, stock, you might be doing well. Austin and Kim are scheduled to meet Thursday with Secretary of State Antony Blinken and South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul at the State Department. There you have it. Obviously, I'm anti-war. I would have liked the war here in my homeland to ceased as well. It's a bit harder when the other side literally says our goal is to, end you and your entire people, to wipe your country off the map. That's somewhat difficult to resolve. But at the very least, I think Trump is very capable of ending the Russian-Ukraine conflict because there's no deep, how to put it, disagreement there. It's just Western interest against Russian sovereignty, in my view. I mean, they were so mad when Tucker Carlson went there and talked to Putin, and then he made videos about how you can go to the subway, you can go to supermarkets, and it's normal. It's clean, it's safe. You don't have people, just picking stuff up and running away with it. You don't have lots of homeless people with needles and all sorts of sanitary problems. He just compared liberal cities to Russia and thought, hey, Russia is like we used to be 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And they were so mad at it because they're trying to convince you, to gaslight you, that it's always been this way. And I guess Russia not moving with the program, not degrading itself with the rest of the Western world, with the rest of Europe, the rest of the white countries, is like canary in the coal mine. They hate it. They can't stand it. That's my take. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.